Here's what's coming up on Network Africa today. Egypt's President Al-Sisi takes poll lead as vote count begins. Police declare Sierra Leone ex-president a suspect in coup attempt. Plus, M23 rebels welcome U.S. brokered ceasefire in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And welcome to the program. I'm Anne Mwawado. Let's start in Egypt, where the electoral body has started counting votes following the conclusion of polls in the presidential election. Voting began on Sunday. It ended at 9 p.m. local time on Tuesday, with more than 67 million people registered to vote. Early provisional results had already placed incumbent President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is seeking a third consecutive term, in the lead. Although three other candidates are vying for the presidency, many Egyptians believe that Mr. al-Sisi will easily win the new 6-year term in office. The official results are set to be announced on December the 18th. Well, joining us now is VOA's Edward Ayaranian from Cairo, Egypt. Thank you very much, Edward, for joining us on Network Africa. Can you tell us about the conduct of the elections? Were there any concerns about the procedure or anything like that?
Well, the Electoral Commission, when they give their press conference, always has a list of things that were being objected to or protested about, or concerns that had been raised. I didn't pay very close attention, unfortunately, to what they were saying on that part of their press conference. But in past years, they've been complaining that judges leave the polling station, and so the voting doesn't take place from a certain time to a certain time, and people are waiting and get annoyed. One of the things that was pointed out to me that it wasn't part of the official complaint list, but people said they were being given sugar to go out and vote. Now, I mean, in most countries, I think that's something they do. Maybe not in all the Western countries, but in many countries in the Middle East, they do it. I saw it in Lebanon. I believe they do it in other Arab countries. So I don't know that that's a really serious breach of anything. But you know, there are complaints. There were invalid votes. Invalid votes could mean anything. It could mean that people just didn't put the name properly, they didn't sign properly, they didn't put their fingerprint on it properly, or somebody didn't like who they voted for and they invalidated it. You never know.
All right, Edward, what is the mood in Egypt as we speak? I mean, will people be accepting another term of al-Sisi, or are the majority ready for a change at the moment?
You know, I think not just in Egypt, but in much of the Arab world, the mood is downbeat because of Gaza, because of the Sudan conflict, and a lot of other reasons, including the economy. I have friends in Lebanon who don't have enough food, friends in Sudan who are running out of food. So the situation here, while people may complain, is a lot better than many other Arab countries. So how is the mood? Well, I would say that in a nutshell, people generally accept their fate in Arab countries. think people lived under Hosni Mubarak for 31 years. In fact, other than the media, I don't recall. I was here, I've been here in Egypt for 16, maybe 17 years. And I don't recall people complaining a lot about Hosni Mubarak until the very end, when the media was complaining about it, and especially the Western media was complaining about what an autocrat he was. Otherwise, I think people were pretty much accepting of Hosni Mubarak. Of course, the economic situation at the time was much better. So there is criticism that you do hear because of the economy.
But let's say El-Sisi wins. Are you seeing any trouble with the results, or even contests coming from maybe other parties or candidates contesting the results?
Not really. I mean, Egyptians are not like some other Arabs who are for instance, people in Lebanon are a lot more boisterous, and they tend to protest a lot more. Egyptians are more accepting of their situation, their fate. I don't know if that's due to religious beliefs, whatever the reason may be, but Egyptians don't really protest a lot. And historically, other than the Muslim Brotherhood, which I think has a very sophisticated protest operation, or did at the time, I think most Egyptians don't really protest a lot, and organizations tend not to protest a lot. Although the Western media will say that they've jailed a lot of people, I mean, it doesn't look like that on the surface of it, because if you look at Turkey, they've jailed an awful lot more people, and nobody is protesting about it. So I don't know. I'm not sure. It's not my call to make, but I think that the talk about people being locked up is a bit overdone.
So when do we expect a new president to be sworn in?
I didn't have a clue, and I asked the people at the Egyptian media directorate who were commenting on the election developments, and they say it hasn't been announced yet. If I were just guessing, I'd say probably January, but I really couldn't say that for certain.
All right. Thank you very much. VOA's Edward Ayeranian from Cairo, Egypt. Thanks a lot for your contribution on Network Africa.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, as always.
Former Sierra Leone President Ernest Bai Koroma has been declared a suspect in the ongoing investigation of the last month's attempted coup. Mr. Koroma, who was granted bail on Saturday, has been under house arrest. Inspector General of Police William Feya Selu explains that even though Mr. Koroma is not above the law, he is not in police custody, as the force is affording him the respect he needs for now. In all, 80 suspects are in police custody, among them serving and dismissed military officers, serving and retired police officers, civilians, and a correctional service officer. Mr. Koroma's daughter, Danke Koroma, who was also named among 54 wanted suspects in a list the police updated on Tuesday. The government has promised a monetary reward to anyone with information that could lead to the capture of the suspect. Mr. Koroma says that he will trust due process and the rule of law to prevail. Observers are concerned about the rapid escalation of violence in West Darfur region, where women and children are the worst impacted. The representative of the Security Council Committee, pursuant to Resolution 1591/2005 concerning Sudan, was addressing the council. The committee comprises all 15 members of the Security Council. It makes its decisions by consensus, but the current chair of that committee for the period ending the 31st of December 2023 is Ghanaian Ambassador Harold Agiman.
The panel updated the committee about rapid escalation of violence in West Darfur, during which women and children were the worst impacted. The panel reported that sexual violence was widespread and ongoing, with RSF and allied militia reported as the alleged perpetrators. The panel also reported on regional dynamics, mediation efforts, the increasing tensions between the signatories of the Juba Peace Agreement, and the financing of the conflict.
Over in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the M23 rebel group has agreed to honor a 3-day U.S. brokered ceasefire deal with the regular army. According to the group spokesman Lawrence Kankuya, the group accepts the deal because it is in line with the M23 rebels' existing signed ceasefire of March the 7th, 2003. M23, which put up this statement on X, warned that despite agreeing to the ceasefire, the group would not hesitate to defend itself and the civilian population under the control and the army or government-allied militia. The ceasefire began on Monday midday, according to a statement by U.S. National Security Council spokesperson Adrienne Watson. Previous ceasefire deals between the rebels and the army have all been breached, leading to fresh fighting. As a 10-year-old mission in Mali, MINUSMA winds down ahead of its end of December deadline to leave, the head of UN peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre, says that the UN mission cannot operate in the absence of support from the host government. He also was in Mali to personally thank the peacekeepers who say that they have been very active in providing protection to civilians. MINUSMA also held an official closing ceremony last week, but still has a presence in 3 bases, and that's in Gao, Bamako, and Timbuktu, and won't be fully withdrawn from Mali until the 31st of December.
Completing this drawdown by 31st of December, as was planned. I was in Mali essentially to thank our colleagues for all the good things that they've done. They have been very active in providing protection to civilians, and I can tell you that in every places where I went to Mali during my many visits there, those places where our colleagues in MINUSMA were deployed and protecting civilians, the feedback from the local population was always very positive and expression of gratitude. And indeed, if there was any demand or ask from them, it was that we should do more. They were asking us to stay and to do more. The peacekeeping mission, in fact, any UN mission cannot operate if we don't have the support of the host government, of the host party. So it had to happen, and I think that the key challenge for us was to make sure that this withdrawal would happen in a way that would be as protective as possible to our colleagues. The safety and security of our personnel is a top priority, of course. The multiplication of crises, the more exacerbated divisions across the member states makes it more difficult for us to operate, and especially because political efforts in this climate of division and tension are not making progress, not enough progress. So these tensions at the global level also are reflected at the local level. However, the protection of civilians remained very active, and again, I mean, every single day there are hundreds of thousands of civilians that depend on our peacekeepers for their protection.
Well, let's give you some good news coming out of Cameroon, where 8 male students who had been abducted by suspected separatists from a school in the war-torn Anglophone northwest region of Cameroon have now been freed. According to a local administrator, Abdullahi Aliyu, the 8 students who were kidnapped were all freed following the intervention of defense and security forces. Mr. Aliyu has described how armed men stormed the school in the Esu area on Tuesday. And according to him, they tortured the students before abducting them. 2 classrooms and principal offices were set on fire during that attack. Some school officials, including the deputy principal, were also kidnapped. Several students who sustained injuries are being treated in hospital, and more than 700,000 children have lost access to education after the closure of several schools since the conflict began in 2017. Welcome back. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has highlighted the prevalence of coups, attempted coups, and non-democratic transitions of power across the African continent over the past 3 years. Speaking at the 20th anniversary celebration of the African Peer Review Mechanism in Sandton, North Johannesburg, President Ramaphosa expressed deep concern about these developments. Joining in the commemoration of this milestone, Sierra Leone President Julius Maada Bio also participated. Our South Africa correspondent Innocent Samosa reports.
anniversary is being celebrated under the theme Accelerating and Deepening Governance Reform, Measures and Intervention. In his keynote address, President Cyril Ramaphosa highlighted some of the challenges facing the continent.
A number of countries in Africa are beset by terrible and protracted conflicts, wars and violence, causing devastation, loss of life, and livelihoods that are disrupted, and also economic productivity that is destroyed.
The president of Sierra Leone, Julius Maada Bio, outlined the importance and the contributions made by the mechanism over the years.
The APRM emerged as a groundbreaking initiative, embodying the spirit of Africanism and a commitment to the well-being of Africans.
The South African Second Generation Country Review Report was also launched during the event. Meanwhile, some are calling for the mechanism to expand its mandate.
It's almost 10 years of the African Agenda 2063. How do we connect peace and security, development, economy to peer review? But also the member states, there's this reluctance amongst leaders who have been holding power for too long. Hence, we have military coups in Africa. I think this APRM is also a fraud, it's also a mistake by African leaders because it doesn't reach down. But I'm happy that we have a second generation report of South Africa, which in most instances it helps us to navigate the challenges that faces the bigger countries in the African continent, whether West Africa, Abuja, Nigeria, South Africa, East Africa, Kenya.
Definitely, I think it's been one of the issues that we raised in the discussions, to say that APRM would need to find an ideal way of assessing state-to-state interventions in youth development. One, in terms of youth policy. How do we find coherence or harmony in youth policy operationalization across the member states? One. Second is, how do we assess how member states are operationalizing the Africa Youth Charter?
Well, participants here agree that the African peer review mechanism should be citizen-driven in order to obtain stability in the continent. Well, the dream for unified Africa remains work in progress. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
And South Africa's multi-award winning Afro-pop star Bulelwa Mkutunana, known also as Zahara, has died. The news of her death was confirmed by South Africa's Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa. In a late-night tweet, the minister said that he was very saddened by the death of the singer. The self-taught guitarist accumulated an impressive collection of awards, including 17 Sam Music Awards and 3 Metro FM Awards, including a Nigeria Entertainment Award. Zahara's passing has triggered an outpouring of condolences on social media, with many people expressing shock and sadness at this news. President Cyril Ramaphosa says that her passing is a real blow to the arts industry.
It's a real unfortunate one. I mean, we've been robbed of great talent. She was talented, she was vibrant, she was a wonderful composer, and to be robbed of that great talent at a young age is a real blow to our country. She's one of the great products that the country has produced in the arts, and I'm really saddened by her passing.
The Finnish government has announced Mahbuba Siraj winner of the 2023 International Gender Equality Prize. As part of that award, she will receive €300,000.
Finland has made great strides when it comes to gender equality. since 1906, when it became the first country in the world to give full political rights to women. Then introduced the Act on Prenatal and Child Health Clinics, known as Novella, in 1944, the 1973 Daycare Act, and the 1987 Act on Equality between Men and Women. The Prime Minister, Petteri Orpo, says protecting women from current times of crisis is important for the government, and this goes beyond Finnish borders. But he says Finland is not done protecting women from discrimination, violence, and inequality.
We must step up our international efforts and work hard to ensure that the rights of women and girls, including sexual and reproductive health and rights, are respected in all countries and continents. Here in Finland, my government submitted a statement to Parliament in September on promoting equality, gender equality and non-discrimination in Finnish society. The statement includes multiple actions to promote equality in all areas of society, from education to working life, and especially to improve the employment rate of women with immigrant backgrounds.
The country's desire to improve on women's rights around the world is what informed its choice of this year's winner, the director, African Women's Skills and Development Center, Mabuba Siraj.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, honestly. Thank you, every single one, for doing this, for believing in me, and for giving me this hope.
How you became. The women's activist from Afghanistan later told me how and when she decided to get involved in protecting the women of Afghanistan, especially under Taliban rule.
It all happened after one day. I was sitting in my apartment. I was actually, no, not sitting. I was doing some work in my apartment, in my house, not apartment, in my house in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the United States. And this is the year must be around 2001, 2, I think 2002. And I was trying to get up, fix my house, and the television was on. And on television, I saw suddenly a news flash that came, and they were talking about Afghanistan. And it showed the picture of a woman sitting in a beautiful area where I knew so well because it was the stadium, Kabul Stadium, and she was being shot in the back of her head by the Taliban. That minute, when that happened, a scream came out. And I thought, I did not know the scream had come out of me. I thought somebody screamed in the house, and it was me. Involuntarily, I screamed when I saw that scene. And from that moment onwards, I decided that I'm not going to let this thing happen.
The International Gender Equality Prize has been awarded every 2 years since 2017, when former German Chancellor Angela Merkel was announced as recipient for bringing gender equality to the agenda of world leaders at summit meetings. According to the judges, she worked to improve the rights and opportunities of women, especially in developed countries. From Tampere, in Finland, Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
And that colourful note, we end Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu.